a show where we examine modern marriage from every angle, including our own relationship. I'm Allison Raskin, a New York Times bestselling author, relationship coach, and mental health advocate who made my husband do this podcast with me.
And I'm John Blakesley, Allison's husband, who this weekend played tennis for the first time in months and learned that I am deeply out of cardiovascular shape.
We had a nice time.
I had a nice time, but it kind of messed up my whole next day, too.
Oh, really?
I was, like, dizzy and stuff.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I used to be able to play sets and sets and sets, and I was, like, completely out of it.
Well, you'll be able to do that again.
Yeah, that's a major goal for this summer, is to get back that endurance.
And maybe you could, sort of be like, oh, well, I'm having pregnancy pains.
Right. I could say that to the guys when I'm playing tennis with.
Yeah, you could be like, my wife's pregnant, therefore I'm more tired.
Right. I'm so empathic.
Right. I'm so connected to her body.
Right. That I can't
That I feel her symptoms, and then you puke on them.
What would I do without this marriage? You give the best advice.
Well, we have a titillating episode for everyone today. We are going to be talking to Hayley Folk all about non-monogamous marriages.
I cannot believe that you agreed to do this.
Well, I talk about non-monogamy all the time.
On your show. Right.
On Just Between Us.
But this show is more intimate about our own relationship.
Right. I'm going to have to tell my dad not to listen to this one. Just like how he wasn't allowed to read chapter 6 and Overthinking About You.
Right. He can't listen to episode 8 of Starter Marriage.
Right. I'll have to just create a list of things he can't engage with. But before we dive into all that juicy stuff, where you forced me to say the word sexy.
Truly, Allison could not get the word sexy out. She says something like, it was hilarious and interesting. And like, Hayley and I are like, you mean sexy?
I hate that word. I wish there was another word for it.
Why?
Because I just don't like it.
If there was another word for it, you wouldn't want to say that word.
No, I don't think that's true.
Yes. Hot? Will you say hot?
No, I guess it
See,
is
yeah,
true.
exactly. It's
All
totally
right.
true.
Anyway, it is time for Marriage Moment TM.
So for that song, you like your today, like your hand was kind of doing it. Like your hand, like if you can't see on the YouTube, like her hand kind of sang the song.
Yeah.
Which that's
ventriloquism.
But you were moving your mouth, so it wasn't really ventriloquism at all.
It was beginner level.
So ventriloquism 101.
Yeah, exactly. Like the -1.
So just 100.
No, like ventriloquism -1. What? That's when you're really bad at something.
I see.
Not even 101. You're at -1. All right.
What's your marriage moment?
So this is the part of our show where we share a fun and illuminating story, or dare I say moment, from our marriage.
Wow.
That stuck with us for whatever reason. And I picked a thematic one this week, which is we spent part of our honeymoon with my ex-boyfriend.
That's so true. That's so true.
And I feel like that would be unusual or even not allowed for a lot of couples.
Right.
But what happened was our really good friends were getting married in Italy about a month and a half after we got married.
Mm-hmm.
And, we weren't exactly in a position to both go to Italy for a wedding and have a honeymoon.
Right.
So we built our honeymoon around their Italian wedding, which was stunning and beautiful.
And also amazing for our honeymoon because, like, we got to spend time together. Then we got to go to this great party. It was like a fun thing built into our honeymoon.
Totally. Added a social element.
Right.
And so I had met these friends through my ex-boyfriend.
Right.
And so I'd remained friends with them post the breakup, and you had met him before.
Yeah.
You met him at the engagement party, whatever. But it was just very funny that, like, you didn't care at all.
Not even a little.
That we were spending our honeymoon with my ex and his girlfriend.
I like them both.
And they're wonderful. And I think what was so funny is Sarah, whose wedding it was like, yeah, every time I looked over, the four of you were together.
Yeah. We really like each other.
You guys were all just hanging out. I thought it'd be weird, but you guys just spent the whole time together. And I was like, well, yeah, we really get along.
Yeah.
There was a reason we dated. And then, like, you know, whoever he dates next isn't going to be that different than me. You're not going to be that different from him. We all have the same sense of humor.
You're a great guy.
So we had a great time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was funny.
That was pretty wild.
Yeah.
All right. Well, my marriage moment is, you know, Allison, you're always making me laugh. You're always throwing me surprises in life, whether it be your ex-boyfriend on our honeymoon or sometimes just in little day-to-day moments.
Ooh, okay.
All right. So we're at the OBGYN the other day, getting ready to welcome our son into the world.
Not that day.
Not that day. Not that day.
There wouldn't be much of him to welcome.
But we're going through the steps.
Right.
And, you know, Al, you've had a rough time this pregnancy. You've been dry heaving. You've been vomiting. You've had a lot of pain. And the doctor's explaining the various ways that your body is going to feel over the course of the next month. None of them sounding pleasant.
Well, then it was also about he was asking about the blood drawing.
Right, the blood drawing. And we all looked at you, and you just sighed, and you said, you know, as Tom Cruise said in the most recent Mission Impossible 8, The Final Reckoning, it's only pain. You said this to a doctor.
Because he'd asked about how the blood test had gone, and that was my response.
Your response was an Ethan Hunt quote. Because Allison also has the movie taste of, like, your uncle. She just loves, like, action comedies and big blockbuster action movies, and she loves Mission Impossible so much and loves Top Gun Maverick.
I like Top Gun Maverick more than I like Mission Impossible.
Okay. Thanks, Uncle Al.
Top Gun Maverick is a perfect film.
Right. I understand that. But you quoted Ethan Hunt in that moment.
Yeah.
Because you were channeling him.
I think that since I'd seen that movie a few weeks ago or whatever, I've been thinking to myself, it's only pain. That really stuck with me. Yeah. But I think probably you and the doctor weren't expecting that.
The doctor kind of nervously laughed and was like, yeah, I could put on some action music. You're like, no, you don't have to do that. Just... I'm not Ethan Hunt, but he's my teacher of sorts through life. And
but I think that's a really good mantra for my entire pregnancy.
It's only pain.
Yeah, like we should get a poster for the labor room
that says it's only pain
with Tom Cruise saying it. You know, like Tom Cruise's face, a bubble, and it says like it's only pain.
Tom Cruise, if you're out there.
I wish he wasn't so problematic.
Would you record a cameo or something for us where you say to Allison, it's only pain?
We play it on loop.
That would be amazing.
As I'm delivering.
If anyone knows Tom, let us know.
He's part of an abusive, evil cult. But man,
he's your favorite actor.
All right, so now it's time to share a listener-submitted marriage moment, which is a very adorable one that I can that would infuriate me, but luckily the listener finds it adorable.
Incredible.
So our listener writes, something I like to make fun of my partner about is that she sometimes forgets stories that I told her and then will retell them to me as if they happened to her. The classic example is this story I love to tell people at parties when I was leading canoe trips with tween girls in northern Canada many years ago. We were all sitting by the campfire at night, and there was this adorable frog that hopped onto one of the large rocks by the fire. And all the girls were saying, "Oh, look at that sweet frog that's sitting by the fire with us. It wants to hang out with us, and it should be our group mascot." And then all of a sudden, the frog jumps into the fire and instantly dies. I'm sorry for sharing that part of the story, but it's horrible. Maybe the frog had decided that it was its time.
It's only pain.
And all the 12-year-old girls started crying and were deeply traumatized by it, as would I be. I feel conflicted I shared this story, but it's for a greater good of marriage moment TM. Anyways, to me, this is a very funny story, and a lot of my friends all know that it's one of my classic bits that I tell sometimes. But at a big summer barbecue last year, my partner and all my friends were sitting by the fire, and she was like, "Oh, let me tell you all this great story." And it was my classic frog story. And then after that, I was like, "Wait, that's my story." I would be so upset with you if you
would
did
be
this.
so mad.
Well, because I don't even like when you retell something a little any different from the truth.
Yeah, like any embellishment at all, even for the sake of a story, you get so upset about.
I think my OCD finds it incredibly offensive.
Yeah,
like
it's very weird.
if you like misrepresent something in my eyes, I feel intense discomfort.
And it's a thing that annoys me deeply about you.
And it's a thing that annoys me deeply about you.
Well, because sometimes I'm telling a story and you weren't even there for it. And it's like, how do you know that that's not what happened? like you're correcting me and you have no idea what you're talking about.
Well, maybe your story's not matching up, John. Maybe when I first heard it, it had sounded a little different.
Or like I didn't share all the details with you. And so because I share an extra detail and you happen to be there, you're fact checking me.
Yeah.
And you have no idea. Just laugh and let it go.
I can't. I really find it upsetting.
Yeah.
That's something I really need to work on. Or is it? Like, who's right? I don't know if either one of us is right.
Oh,
here.
I think I'm so right.
No, I don't think so. Because you're not supposed to lie to your friends and loved ones.
It's not a lie. If it was like you made up the whole story, fine. That's a lie. But one, sometimes just like let your partner tell the story. And sometimes when you're doing a story, you have to shape it a little bit to like make it funny, make it make sense.
Not if it's a lie.
It's not a lie. It's just like the stakes are so low. Like if it's like a story that like affects anything at all, then sure, let's make sure everything is totally truthful.
People's opinion of you or what happened.
Yeah, so that you can be like, don't laugh at that, don't laugh at that. The punchline was a slight misrepresentation of what actually happened. He's actually not funny.
Thank God you have me around.
Thank God. Thank God I have you around and knock me down a peg. He's not funny. He's not really funny. Don't listen to him.
I think you're very funny and also a liar.
Well, that's so mean.
Just kidding. No, you're not a liar, but you do embellish way more than I do.
Well, okay. Sometimes things like this will happen that annoy me. They really do. It'll be like someone we barely know, right? And they'll be like, oh, so you're a writer. Like, have you worked on any shows that I know?
Oh my God, I was gonna bring this up.
And
as
so,
something that deeply annoys me.
A lot of times I'll be like, yeah, I worked on Jane the Virgin. Right.
Yeah.
And like, yes, if it is someone that we care about and have an ongoing relationship with them, I can like explain to them that I was the script coordinator on the show and therefore was not an official writer, even though I was in the writer's room and pitched jokes and pitched things and like, you know, and like, so if I get to know someone and I'm explaining to them and they don't understand Hollywood, maybe I'll explain to them that like, yeah, I was in the writer's room, but I wasn't an official writers yet. Can I tell you, none of these people care. They're just excited that you worked on the show, but you have to let them know that no, actually John was just an assistant.
It's not that it's just an assistant. To me, it's just, it is just such a misrepresentation of your life.
But okay, so you
like,
would rather me saying I never worked on anything that you've seen?
No, why wouldn't you just go? I was a script coordinator on Jane the Virgin.
They don't know what that is.
But who cares?
They don't know what that is.
But like to let people think that you were a staff writer on Jane the Virgin when you weren't feels to me like incredibly.
But I'm
misleading.
never saying that. I'm saying, I worked on a bunch of shows, and then eventually I got into to be a writer. Have you ever worked on a show that I am aware of? Yeah, I worked on Jane the Virgin. Okay, it's a little misleading.
It's very misleading.
But like, it's like this is like a casual interaction. This isn't like a friend of ours, and I sometimes feel like you, I don't know, like you're just like unnecessarily needling me.
It has not. I think you're just sensitive around it because it's a career thing. To me it is just about misrepresentation in any way. Like I would be that way about anything. Like to me, I think it's a particular sore point because it's about writing and because it's about your career. But if you were someone that implied that you grew up in New York when you were from New Jersey, I would have the same issue with it. Like it's just that it's a misrepresentation of any kind, and that's probably an OCD issue that I have, and it's something I struggled with my comedy partner Gabe with for years because he really embellishes, and it makes me physically uncomfortable.
But like, what is about it that it's like, if this is a person we're never going to interact with again, why are you so uncomfortable?
Because it's really important for me to accurately portray myself to the world and for the people around me to accurately portray themselves to the world. And again, it sounds pathological, and it probably is. Like, it's probably like an OCD symptom.
Because like for a while, I've since like started telling people, yeah, I was a script coordinator on this. I've started explaining to them the steps, and they don't care, and then they wind up introducing me as someone who was like a writer on the show, and it's like,
It's just it's always been an issue for me,
Yeah.
and it's probably OCD related.
it's probably one of my least favorite qualities that you have.
Wow,
Yeah.
it's one of my least favorite qualities that you have.
Wow.
We still make it work.
Thanks for coming to the final episode of Starter Marriage.
Welcome back to Starter Marriage. It's time to pop the question. This is the part of the show where we deep dive into the main topic of the episode with an incredible guest. And this week, we are joined by Hayley Folk, who is a writer and content creator who shares about and helps folks navigate sex, relationships, identity, and ethical non-monogamy through the lens of her own bisexuality and polyamorous marriage. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Considering this is a marriage podcast, I feel like our first question has to be, why get married if you're poly? And are these two concepts more compatible than maybe they seem at first?
Yes, so I'm so glad you asked that because that's always something that people lean into first, is either how do you not get jealous and why are you married if you're polyamorous in general? And my answer to that is always the same. It's marriage to my husband and I means something different, I think, to other people. We don't view marriage as the penultimate, like we are each other's love of our lives forever. We sort of view it as more of an internal commitment to each other. And while we have other relationships with other people, we use marriage as a way to show those people what commitment we have. So, for example, if we're dating other people, instead of being like, oh, I have a boyfriend, which some people don't take as seriously, we can say, I have a husband or I have a wife, and we are committed to each other legally, financially, all of the things. But we don't carry this idea that marriage is, this thing that's like up here that should be like holier than thou.
But there is some inherent kind of contradiction in what you said, though, that like you find that people will respect that you have a spouse more than a non-married partner.
Yes. And that is something that I have grown to navigate over time. Like, if I said I have a partner, even people tend to be like, well, are you married or are you not married? And if you're married to the outside world, it makes a difference somehow in the way that they view your relationship. Whereas for us, I think being poly is just our way of showing the world our commitment because that's what the world understands currently as being the ultimate commitment you can make to someone.
So please forgive my ignorance in whatever questions I ask, 'cause Allison is way more educated in these things than I am. But so with your husband, is that relationship like, is there like a hierarchy of relationships in your life, or do some people have like a more democratic, for lack of a better term, like where you have two or three partners at any given time and you treat them all equally, or there are different rules with your husband?
Yeah, so there is hierarchy in our relationship specifically. Some people in polyamory do not have hierarchy. So it truly depends on what works for you. We choose to have hierarchy because we don't feel we necessarily have the capacity to have multiple serious relationships with other people that
Right.
feel on the same level. So we tend to tell people when we date, like, hey, we have a hierarchical marriage, we are married, we take kind of the priority. If we're dating, it's typically more casual, or we talk about integrating them in a different way. But some people do falter into thinking that hierarchy is bad. A lot of the polyamorous community kind of assumes that. And a lot of folks that I know who end up in ethical non monogamy in general, they tend to lean towards hierarchy because they're in a monogamous relationship and they usually open it up. And so it starts with hierarchy in the beginning, but it can be something else. And it truly depends on what you want in your couplehood as a person and what your values really are.
I feel like you, John, the idea that you could be dating around is exciting to you,
Uh-huh.
but in reality, you wouldn't like it.
Yeah. God, I gotta be careful. Yeah. Yes, it is an exciting idea. I think it might be like stressful in terms of like time commitments and like, I do have questions for you about like children and how people navigate that. But like, yeah, I mean, of course there is the sexual component that is exciting and interesting, but also um, like there are things that Allison and I don't do that I used to do with like other girlfriends. Like we don't go out to bars like super late at night and like,
Mhm.
have,
Wow,
like
that's so not what I thought that was going. Thank
where
God.
did you think it was going?
Not so PG.
Oh wow, okay. No,
I was like, oh no.
no.
You're like, what are you gonna say?
No, like, like that's just like
Mhm.
Allison doesn't even drink and she's in bed by 9 p.m.
On a good night.
And so, or like certain like I could imagine a version where I like dating someone where we went to like the orchestra. Like I know which sounds so lame, but like you have no appreciation for like those fine art things. And I would like love to like get dressed up and like go to something like that and then like go out to dinner. And Allison's like dying laughing at me even right now.
I'm just laughing like how many people would be like, I would like
I
to
know,
open the
I
marriage so
know.
I could go to the orchestra.
I do.
That's a totally valid choice.
Sure, there could be sex too, but the orchestra is the
But you
main thing
can
I'm
go to
concerned
the
about.
orchestra with your friends.
No one wants to go to the orchestra with me.
JC would go to the orchestra with
Yeah,
you.
he probably would. But he'd be giving me crap about it the whole time. I just want to go with a classy lady to the orchestra and have cocktails, and then I'll say I gotta get home to my wife. I want to go on a fake date with someone to the orchestra. Is that
I
so
mean, it
much
sounds
to
like
ask?
a good time.
Right? Yeah. There we
next
go.
time you're in town,
Yeah, next time
Hayley,
you're in town, we can go on
let
a
us
fake
know.
date to the orchestra.
Uh,
But yeah, I wonder myself, like, because I think when we've talked about it early in our relationship, like, I would be hard for me to like, I think, get involved on like an emotional level with people, but it was just like a
Mhm.
date here, a date there. I could like imagine that, but I am like, like we're expecting our first child in December, and I am curious like how people navigate that because, um, I don't want to say anything problematic, but like, maybe people do it no problem. But I am worried like something like that would be like confusing for a child, but I could be wrong.
Sure. Well, congratulations. That's
Thank you.
you.
amazing. Wonderful. I will say, so I maybe should have led with this because I think it's really important to distinguish what ethical non-monogamy truly is and
Yeah.
like poly and open relationships. So ethical non-monogamy is an umbrella term, and under it there is a lot of different terms. There's polyamory, which is simply the ability to love multiple people at once.
Mm.
If you feel that you can love someone romantically and also love someone else romantically at the same time, you could be polyamorous and never act on it. And then there's open relationships where it's generally more casual, usually like sex based or more like, you're talking about going to the orchestra with someone casually. That could be an open relationship. There's monogamish, which means that you fall into monogamy most of the time. And sometimes there's a little bit of wiggle room. Like say that you met someone at a bar and you want to hook up and do that, or you meet someone at work and you really are attracted to them and so you want to explore a relationship there, and sometimes that's okay within your relationship. And then there's of course swinging or pineapple culture, which everyone kind of knows. I would say the people that I know who have children and are in ethical non-monogamous relationships generally fall in the open category or monogamish. So they
Mm.
don't have like serious committed loving partnerships with other people. It's generally that they kind of integrate their children in a way that feels like more of a friend capacity.
Mm.
I know someone who has an 8-year-old and a 12-year-old, and she is in an open marriage and doesn't tell her children, and chooses that because she feels it could be confusing.
Yeah.
But I've also met folks who have little ones and they've integrated their partners really early on into their lives. So it doesn't feel confusing at all. It's more like, oh, like this is just someone else who's around who's important to my mom
Mhm.
and dad. I don't have kids though, so I won't ever have to navigate that,
Yeah.
this is my child, my fur baby. And he knows everything about me.
Yeah, that's just the lady that dad goes to the orchestra with.
It's just
And
funny
Yeah.
because that doesn't have to be romantic. You don't need it to be, it doesn't need to be a sexual partner that you go to the orchestra with.
100%. Well, and it is funny that that's what I want. But it's also, it doesn't have to be sexual. But, and hear me out,
Okay.
there's something really lovely about like being with a beautiful woman out at, out at in the like the theater. Go
The
sitting
possibility of it all.
down, yeah, having a drink, like going through, the pomp of it all. Even having a date like that is, that's not something that we do, and so, that's what I would be.
Look,
I'd
if
be
you get
interested
me earplugs, I will sit next to you at the orchestra.
Yeah.
No, I gotta find somebody else. I gotta find my orchestra lady.
I find that we land in this interesting space where we are like 100% monogamous,
Yes.
but there's no jealousy.
Yes.
Where like we both sort of have this understanding that there will be crushes or there will be like flirtatious moments, or that like, we're watching a movie and I'll be like, you must love her, and you're like, yes I do. Like that there's no hiding that there's like attraction and like that the world didn't like end the moment we met each other.
And I think maybe because people perceive us as being very traditional in that sense, I think it surprises people sometimes when like one of us will mention that, like, I don't know, an actor or an actress is hot in front of your like in front of your spouse, and that couldn't be like less of a thing for us, or like that they're flirtations or crushes or
Like we like recently went to dinner with some friends, and I was mentioning how like I knew that you had this crush on this girl that was in your life for a couple of days.
yeah.
And I was like completely unbothered by it. I was like, yeah, like I'm sure like if you had met her when we weren't together and she was single, you would have like been interested in her. But that's different than like you're gonna break the rules of our marriage and cheat on me.
Yes.
Like there's such a
Very, very different.
there's such
Yeah.
a leap between
Yeah.
those things that I think for some people, maybe based on like their own baggage or like the trauma that they've experienced or whatever, it's harder to see like how much distance there actually is between those two things.
I do think, like, when we're talking about jealousy, most people who fall into monogamy feel really jealous, or they assume that every monogamous person also feels a certain level of jealousy, like you're talking about.
Right.
Even I, talking to couples, often see that if you're monogamous, generally there's like a higher level of jealousy. So it's really cool that you both feel like you can say what you want, even like if you're just watching a movie together and you find someone hot. Like that's all healthy and a part of humanity.
Agreed. And I actually found it quite attractive that one, you noticed that about me. I guess maybe I'm not that sly.
Oh, about that girl?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then-
I was on to you.
And two, how unbothered you were
Yeah.
by it. And our friends who we were having dinner with, I'm not sure they would. I think they might have been surprised by it too. That like, yeah, you had a crush on her, but obviously that's not going to be anything more, and that's not like a fight. That is like a prelude to a fight later or something like that.
Because I think for me, the difference is like, what are you allowing as possibility, right? So
Right.
like, you're going to bump into people who like you are more drawn to. And so if you're like, oh, I know I'm more drawn to this person, I know that if I wasn't in a relationship, I would pursue this person, then it's like, well, then what type of relationship do you allow to have, right? Like, this is someone
Mm.
who wasn't going to be around long,
No.
but like, if that, like, let's say that was like a coworker, in that situation, I would expect that you would be like, proceed with caution, right? That like, maybe I don't like get drinks with her one-on-one, or I don't like spend my whole night texting, that like there's a recognition of like, oh, this is a person that like I could find myself wanting more with, and therefore I'm going to put up some boundaries early on
Mm.
in a way that maybe I wouldn't with like someone else of the, because we're both straight, someone else of the opposite sex where that attraction's not there. So like a more pure friendship is possible. But I think like that's sort of like the expectation rather than that you won't feel that draw at all to begin with.
Right. And so that's the boundary in our relationship. But I'm curious, like, if you feel comfortable talking about it, Haley, like, are there certain boundaries or rules in your relationship, or are there certain boundaries and rules of people trying it that you start out with, or
Yeah. Well, for my husband and I, for context, we have always been open. We've always been in an open relationship since we started dating. I knew that I was polyamorous, and wanted to be in an open relationship before we even really became romantic.
yeah,
So we led with that. So we never had that conversation of we have to open this and these are now our new boundaries. We sort of just had these in place. And one of the main things that we talked about initially was okay, we're allowed to see other people, but we're not going to stay the night with other people.
mm,
That was early on. And as things do, they change over time. And we have found that our boundaries and rules for our dynamic have shifted so much. It's been almost 6 years that we've been together. We've been married for a year and a half. And our rules that we had set were super rigid at the beginning. And I think it's because we were a little nervous. Like
yeah,
we want to be like overly cautious about everything and even over communicate to each other so that we don't make a misstep and hurt each other somehow. And I always say that's important. But the main rule was really just no staying over, being very clear with other people about our relationship dynamic and what feels good for us. Always safe sex. So using condoms, like using dental dams. I don't know if you guys know what those are, but female
Yes.
condoms.
yeah,
And just all the things that you can do to put in place for safe sex. And then our number one rule really was having check-ins before and after dates. So that could look like sitting on the phone together, that could look like FaceTiming. My husband's away a lot, he travels for work. So oftentimes we are not in person having these conversations. And that is sometimes a challenge, but we always take at least 5 to 10 minutes to talk about how we're feeling, if either of us need anything from one another. And then afterwards, we debrief and share what we want to share. And that's not required to share anything specific, but generally, I like to share. I think it's fun. It makes for a different experience together, and it makes me feel closer to my husband Kyle to have those conversations. But I do think with all of that, it will shift and ebb over time depending on where we are as a couple.
I think it's really interesting that, like, how the evolution of the rules, that like it started
Mhm.
out and like there needed to be trust built before you could kind of be like, oh, maybe we'll get rid of this rule, or the rule will evolve, or there'll be new rules. I think that's really super interesting. And I also would like to point out that, like, the thing about connecting, I feel like people who are monogamous and totally faithful with each other should probably do that too. like
Yeah.
like just like you're connecting and you're regulating each other. And
John's always trying to get me to look him in the eyes.
I'm always trying to get her. She never wants to look me in the eye. Just look
Oh
me
my
in the
gosh,
eyes.
okay. I went to an event recently. It was a dating event, an ethically non-monogamous dating event. And I went without my partner. And generally we like to go to events together. It's just like more fun that way. But he wasn't home and I got invited to write about this event. And I went, and one of the things that you do is you do an eye gazing exercise with a stranger. So you eye gaze with somebody that they pair you with. You don't even get to like
Oh,
choose who you eye gaze
it's my
with.
nightmare.
And you gaze into their eyes for 3.5 minutes.
Wow.
It's very intense. I've done a lot of therapy, I've done a lot of somatic work. This was a different level. Like, I felt like I was going to cry by
Yeah.
the end because I'm like, it's just very different to like really gaze into someone's eyes. So I went home and said, Kyle, we should do some eye gazing. I think it'll be great for us.
I made Allison do it like a couple months ago. I said, let's gaze into each other's eyes for like a minute or something.
Did
And
we?
we did. You honored that I wanted to eye gaze.
Yeah.
And then you made fun of me.
You put in our calendar. A minute here, a minute there. I did want to ask you about your first marriage and how I believe your first husband wanted to explore being open, but ultimately it wasn't the right fit for him, which I imagine is something that happens a lot with couples, where even if there is like a willingness to try, sometimes it just isn't the right route for both people.
So I was in a previous marriage. I got married very young. I got married when I was 22. And when I was 20, I realized I was bisexual and I had never explored that. I was super scared to come out. I didn't tell any of my friends or my family. And I remember going home one day and my then partner, he wasn't my husband yet, said, I know that you're bi and I think that we should be open. Like he said it just like that.
Wow.
And
Wow.
I was taken aback. Like I had never heard of non-monogamy. I didn't know what this meant. I was like, I don't know if I could do this. I feel like I'm going to be really jealous. I think it's going to hurt our relationship. And so I thought about it for 3 months. And in thinking about it, I realized, oh, I think I'm going to feel really um I'm just going to look back on this time and wish that I had had experiences with women if I don't do it now. So I said, let's do it. And we opened our marriage and slowly we started dating. And what ended up happening is I dated a lot and he did not date at all.
Hmm.
And I don't think that was because he couldn't get dates. Like, it's not one of those things where he's like, oh, okay, like I can't find anyone on apps or I don't find anyone attractive or I don't really want to have sex with someone else. He was trying. He really was, but he just wasn't getting dates in the way that I was. So I think that gave him a little pause. Like, is this really for me? Can I handle that my partner is off doing all of these things and I'm not? Another thing is, I think ultimately he thought that opening the relationship meant that there was going to be lots of threesomes and orgies, and that didn't happen either. I think that's very common. People think that when they open their relationship, especially if it's a cis het presenting relationship, that there's going to be a lot of male gaze centered
Hmm.
orgies, and that just did not happen. So ultimately, I started dating women and really experiencing a lot of joy and fun. And I was kind of opening my eyes to my sexuality at that point. And I met a woman who I fell very deeply in love with. And it happened super quickly. It was like the stereotypical U-Haul lesbian archetype that people think of. Like I just immediately knew that I wanted to be with her, and in a more serious way, which is why I found out I was polyamorous. And over this time, my husband realized he could not do this, and he asked if we could close the relationship, and I just felt like I couldn't. I
Yeah.
felt like I've awakened this part of me. I now know that I am really, really queer, which I didn't know before. I now know that I'm hanging out with all of these people who actually listen to me, spend time with me in ways that my husband was not doing, who fulfilled me in emotional and spiritual ways, sexual ways that I just was not getting in my marriage. There was like it was like piling ethical non-monogamy on top of a marriage that was already kind of crumbling in its
Hmm.
foundation. So it did not work. And I don't think, I want to say this, I don't think that our marriage would have worked even if we didn't do this. I think that ethical non-monogamy has a way of sort of highlighting everything that already exists in your relationship. So if
Right.
you have communication issues, it's going to show up even more because you're adding this other whole dynamic and person and personalities on top of each other, and it's going to clash if you don't already have a good basis. So in 2019, I realized like I just can't do this anymore, and I decided to ask for a divorce, and it was amicable. We both felt like we just don't belong together. And he also wanted children, and I realized I didn't want kids, so that's a huge thing.
Right.
That you get married super young, you change a lot in the years that you're married. Um, I don't advocate young marriage now because of that. I'm like, you don't know yourself. Like I did not know myself when I was 21 years old. And it took me years and years to really discover who I was and what I wanted truly in a partner.
And I think there's this feeling sometimes that if we've entered into a marriage under the guideline of monogamy, that it is unfair to bring to your spouse that you are curious about being open, that you're in
Mhm.
some way breaking the
Agreement.
law, the agreement of the marriage and the partnership. But, in my research, like I find that it's always okay to broach it, right? Like, it's always okay to actually bring it up and say, like, hey, I'm curious about this. What are your thoughts on it? But what you just can't do is expect your partner to be where you are around it, right? Like, that
Yeah,
we have to
that's very
give
true.
them space to think about it, to decide. And that it's not like ultimately like a failing if one person realizes that opening a marriage or being um non-monogamous or poly even, that's their preferred lifestyle. I mean, I feel like for some reason there's probably like more shame around that being the reason a partnership ends rather than it being, oh, I want to move out of the country and you don't,
Right.
or right, like I want to have kids and you
Hmm.
don't. Like there's this sense of like, but couldn't you just sacrifice that part of yourself for the relationship? Have you found that to be that like people maybe feel like some shame if that's the reason why a relationship isn't working?
Absolutely. I mean, because it's different than, "Oh, I want kids and you don't."
Hmm.
Like, it feels different in that way. Like, if you open a relationship and it ultimately doesn't work out, I've heard from a lot of folks that they feel like failures because they brought it into their relationship. Their desire somehow ended their relationship
Hmm.
because
Mm.
the other person didn't want it. One of the things I hear very often is when you are approaching your partner, say that you've been thinking about polyamory, non-monogamy for a long time and you've really worked up the courage to bring it up. When you actually do and they agree, like let's try this, you should always move at the pace of the person who is maybe a little bit slower
Hmm.
Yeah.
because that person needs time to catch up to where you are. If you've been thinking about this for a year, and really like exploring what it could mean to you and your partner is just finding out, it's like they need time to move and breathe and grow with you. um, and if you're doing that together, hopefully it can be a success. But a lot of people feel it's failure when it doesn't work, because they don't communicate well, or they don't have proper boundaries and rules set up. They don't take the time to really like reflect on what it is they want from non-monogamy.
That makes a lot of sense about the speed. Like that, even in your prior marriage, like you were at a much faster speed than your husband, right? In terms of like embracing this and going on dates. I had never considered that as that can be a dial for people of like, maybe you each agree to only go on a certain amount of dates a month, or you have to have equal dates, or yeah, that's interesting. I never considered that.
Yeah, and I think there's also just like something that probably plays into like, am I being selfish? Right? Like, am I being selfish that I want more when I have this strong partnership to begin with?
I felt deeply ashamed
Yeah.
Yeah.
to eventually want it. Like, it was interesting to be the one that was maybe scared in the beginning because he approached this. And then in the end, for me to wholeheartedly want this and it be a challenge and
Yeah.
be something that he didn't want. It did bring up a lot of shame, especially because I didn't know anybody else who was doing this at all. There
Mhm.
was not a lot of, I mean, I always say, like, I was in Reddit threads, like, reading people's experiences, but who knows if it was true, right? And,
Right.
like, I didn't know a single person in real life who, 1, was queer, and 2, who
Yeah.
was willing to open their relationship, in that way. And so there was a lot of shame in the beginning that I had to really work through when I stepped away from the marriage.
That's why I feel like these broader conversations around how marriages can look so differently is helpful, right? That like we don't have to have like the same expectation of marriage that people used to have. So
Right.
like you're allowed to want more, only get married if it fits this mold, like not have to just like embrace just like any version of marriage, unless it's like the one that works for you.
Have you ever found polyamory or non-monogamy attractive, Allison? Like for you personally, in any relationship, or even the idea of it?
Like sometimes I think about like what would happen if like I was like part of a TV show and every single day I worked with someone that I was like very drawn to.
Yeah.
And like what would that be like?
Hmm.
Because I remember back like years ago I was just dating someone. We it was a short relationship, but it was like the one time where I met someone while I was dating someone else who I was like, oh, I really like this person.
Mm.
And it's like a conflicting feeling, right? It's like you're like, ooh, am I is this allowed? And I think, because I wasn't in a good relationship, like it
Right.
just that just sort of even highlighted more that like I should just dump my boyfriend because but like obviously we have a very strong marriage. And so, but then you think about like the logistics of that and like what does it actually mean? And I think sometimes for me, like if something were to happen to me physically or like emotionally, where like just like my sexual self was just really shut down, then there's an appeal that like that opening our marriage would take that pressure off of me.
So it's so interesting because like I asked you like what is appealing to you about it, and it's like that I could like that's like like I'm like totally opening the door for you to like be like, if there's something you could get out of it, but it'd be like that if what, like if you could no longer physically have sex, that you would want it so that I could have this, which okay, thank you, that makes sense. But like, is there any part of you that finds that like sexy or interesting to you?
Only like a makeout.
I see.
Like I think like the idea if I was like really liked someone, I could make out with them one time.
Honestly, a good makeout is underrated.
It
People
is.
really forget about it.
Yeah, like that's the only like that
Right.
I could see myself like in a certain scenario being like, "Oh, I wish I could make out with this person."
Right.
But having like a full-blown love affair doesn't feel that appealing to me.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work. I'll say that.
Yeah.
It's like a lot of juggling, schedules, personalities, conversations to be had. It is a lot.
Yeah.
I'm curious like your thoughts on why a lot of monogamous people find non-monogamy so threatening.
Mm.
Oh, I have a lot to say about this. First off, I mean, so I do a lot of content about non-monogamy and polyamory on TikTok and Instagram. The amount of hate comments that I get from monogamous people is crazy. Like I just think it's very interesting because I don't personally, I would never bash on someone else's relationship style, but it happens a lot with polyamorous open folks. I think it comes from a place of not understanding or not believing that it is real. Um, a lot of people are like, "Oh, that could never exist. That doesn't actually work." I remember when I came out to my dad, actually, as poly and bi, his response to me was, "Oh, your mom and I were open in the '90s, and it never works. You're going to get a divorce." Like that was his
Wow.
Fascinating.
main response to me. One, I didn't know that they were open. I also
Yeah.
didn't know that my mom was bisexual. I learned that, way later. Um, I found it really crazy. Like, oh, you guys are pretty open minded to be open in the '90s. Like, I
Yeah.
was kind of impressed. But then he led with, "That's never going to work. It never works." Um, and I remember hearing that and thinking, why? Like, why are you so offended by it? Or why are you so scared? And I really think it comes from a place of just not thinking you could do it yourself. And
Mm.
also, not to mention societal expectation that we see in media, books, everything we consume is about finding the love of your life and just having that one person. And I do think it's beautiful. Like, I would say my husband is the love of my life, but I we choose to live a different relationship style. And for folks who are intimidated by it, um, it's because you're acclimated and grown up to think that this is the only way and nothing else works. Otherwise, it's cheating. That's the other thing. People equate it a lot to cheating. I get hundreds of comments a day of people saying, "Oh, that's just a way to say that you want to cheat,"
Yeah.
which is not the same thing.
I do find it so funny, these like serial cheaters, where it's like, why don't you just open your relationship? You know?
Just talking about this the other day, I have a friend who would be happy for me to talk about this actually. She was dating this guy and he cheated on her like 5 times. And she found out every time, and every time he's like, "I'm so sorry, I'll never do this again. I feel like a terrible person for cheating." Then continues to go on cheating. They dated for 3 years. And I said to him like, what's going on? Like why is he so unhappy? What is his decision here? And she was like, I literally said to him, we could be open, and he said, no, I couldn't do that,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm.
then cheats. So I think there is an inherent gripping on of like monogamous societal standards that people don't want to deal with. They would rather keep it hidden, than be open and honest with the world about maybe wanting something that's out of the norm or considered taboo still.
And
Also,
also,
then she would be able to date
right,
other
I was just
people.
about to say
Yeah,
that, like,
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
suddenly,
That too.
when he cheats, he controls the situation, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you open your marriage, suddenly you can't control what your wife does. Maybe even the cheating itself is less fulfilling to him because it's not
Hmm.
transgressive. It's just a
Less
part.
thrilling.
Yeah, exactly. And so, yeah, it's ultimately about control.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you think you would tell me right away if you cheated on me?
I think so.
Yeah.
I don't know right away, but I would
While
probably.
it was happening.
You would while it was happening. You would tell on yourself. Yeah, I don't know. I think so. I think I would. The guilt would eat away at me.
Mhm.
But yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, I think I'd tell you, because I also think that we are not a couple where if like there was one transgression, that's the end of the relationship. And I think that is something that I think makes it harder for certain couples to share when something goes wrong, right? There's this is my hard line. Like if you ever cheat on me on any way, then it's over. And I think we have a understanding that that wouldn't be the case,
Right.
which I feel like people are always surprised when I say that.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't leave it just because you cheated on me one time.
Right.
I'd be
Well,
like,
that implies that people don't change and that they don't learn from their mistakes
Right.
in some way.
and that like the cheating itself, I think I think an affair is different because to me, like lying is different. Like
Hmm.
purposefully keeping up a lie and covering up your tracks and a whereabouts and like that's an ongoing process. Whereas like, what happens one night with one person, how much of that's even about me? Do you know what I mean? Versus
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
what you're going through, like what the opportunity was, and obviously if it ends up, oh, it was about me, that's a bigger issue. But, I think that that's something that people often like don't understand both in terms of cheating and in terms of like the desire to be non-monogamous is it's not a reflection of how your partner feels about you or how much
Mhm.
you're attractive or bringing to the relationship. It's often about like what their needs are or like how they view the world or where they are in that moment.
Yeah, 100%. And I think too, the idea that you can get every need met by your partner, I just don't think is realistic. And even monogamous people I've talked to say this, like they know that that's not realistic. They choose anyways to say, "Oh, I don't need to go to the orchestra every weekend." You're like that, you're making that choice and being monogamous. Whereas for me, I have certain needs that I would like met. The major one being that I really want to be in a sapphic, loving relationship, and that just can't exist with my
Right.
husband because he is a cis het man. And he gives me so many wonderful things, but we both acknowledge that there are things I can't give him either. And we choose to look in other places for those. It doesn't diminish our relationship at all to have certain desires or feel fulfilled in conversation or dates or sex with other people. I think, in fact, it makes us closer as a couple to come back together and explore what we've done, how we feel, and also experience compersion. Do you guys know what compersion
I
is?
was I was a little afraid to ask, but I would love to
I
hear about
do.
it.
Oh, yeah.
I
Okay.
do, but
Compersion is one of my favorite topics, and it's one of my favorite words as well. When I learned this, I was like, "Oh my God, I'm not a freak. Like this is me." Compersion is experiencing joy for your partner to have joy with somebody else.
Oh wow.
And you could use that in many different contexts. Like even in a monogamous sense. But for me, compersion really means to watch my husband go on a date with a woman and come back and just be filled with like a new relationship energy or feel really excited. If he's going on a trip with somebody and he tells me about it and I can see that he's happy, I get so much joy from that. And that joy is called compersion.
Wow. Have you ever felt that?
Um, I mean, I definitely like that, like, people find you so charming,
Uh-huh.
but that's maybe more about, like, I find it attractive that other people are drawn to you versus, like, the joy that these other people bring you.
Yeah, yeah, I get that too. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
I think that, like, and this is maybe where we're different from other monogamous couples. Like, if someone were to flirt with you in front of me, I would find that kind of hilarious and and like charming.
Oh, I would go the opposite way and I would say that it's sexy.
I was just thinking
Mhm.
that. Like, I would think that it's sexy. If it yeah, but like, would you go that far, or do you just not want to use that word?
I hate that word. I wish there was a different word for that. I just don't. I can never say
Allison
that word with a
hates
straight
talking
face.
about sex. She hates
Oh
talking
my
about
God,
it.
you would hate me. You would hate me. That's all I talk about.
um,
I'll talk about it with you. I just don't want to talk about him.
Yeah, that's fair. The
Like,
person you have sex with, that's the one person you're not gonna say anything.
Allison likes to pretend that like sex is just one big prank, one big joke that we can laugh about later. But
I mean, I like obviously like it's attractive when other people
Yeah.
find you attractive,
Right.
right? Like I definitely like I don't feel threatened by that. I feel like, oh, I did a good job.
right,
Yeah.
right, yeah, yeah.
Is that true for you? Like if a guy was blatantly flirting with me in front of you, you would be okay with that?
I think it would depend on whether or not, like, if I was right in front of you, I might take it as like he doesn't respect me.
Yeah.
But if I knew that you were flirting with this guy, like, and I was on the other side of the party, yeah, I think I would find it kind of sexy that like he like desires you, but like I did a good job. Like, you know what I mean? Like I found, yeah, I would find it sexy. Yeah.
Wow. You've heard it here first, folks.
Now all these people just start running up to you at parties. Get away!
I have a feeling that when Kyle and I are dating other people, there's always this feeling when we come home to each other that we're like proud of each other. And when he's on a date with someone, I'm like, oh, I'm proud because you're like coming home with me. I did a good job because you married me. You're like
Right.
Yeah.
spending your life with me, but you're out doing other things with other people, and that's totally okay and within our boundaries. But it does feel really satisfying to come home after a date and just like cuddle in bed together.
Right.
And in the scenario that you just laid out for me, I think Haley said it better than me, which is like I would see that and then I would say, but she's coming home with me. And I
Right.
would like find that attractive.
And I think that's where insecurity can really get in people's way, where it's like if they see someone flirting with their partner, they feel jealous because it's almost like because it's like they forget that like that their partner isn't in control of how other people respond to them, but their
Mhm.
partner is in control of who they go home with and who they choose.
Right.
And so there's like it's not threatening for someone to come on to your partner if you trust that your partner isn't going to do anything about it. And I think that again that's where that leap can be hard.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense. I mean, it's also like I think probably so much of that insecurity comes from like they're going to have a connection with someone else more and they're going to leave me.
Mhm.
And that has to be at least part of the sex thing. Like, why is sex so in a different category than like, probably some people would consider an emotional affair even more intense, even if it was never consummated sexually. But I bet a lot of couples out there wouldn't mind that as much as like one night where they actually had sex with someone. And I wonder why that is, if it's just a cultural thing or if it's like the pleasure involved of sex makes people think that it is going to trick you into thinking that, oh, there's all kinds of pleasure and things that I'm missing out of my life.
Yeah, I mean, I do think for me, I've heard that people who have emotional affairs take it. I mean, I would take an emotional affair if I was in a monogamous relationship, harder than if my partner had sex with someone else and that was not allowed in our relationship,
Right.
personally.
I've
And I
always
think that
heard
is
that women are more hurt by emotional affairs and men are more hurt by
yes.
physical
Right.
affairs.
I'm curious to know about how my partner would feel if we were monogamous. But sex to me is, a lot of people view it as, well, you now are searching for something I can't give you. I don't fulfill you. I can't make you orgasm. I can't do that kink that you really like because I'm not into it. Um, and I don't want to do it. And now you're off doing it with somebody else. Um, I think sometimes too, in relationships where sex is not happening often, if there's cheating or anything involved sexually, it's like, oh, well, you are not attracted to me anymore. And that can be a really big weight for some folks too. Like
Right.
just not feeling attractive anymore to your partner. And marriage, like, ebbs and flows, sex, desire, libido ebbs and flows. But I think that sex can be painful in the cheating aspect because there's all of these context that happens in relationships.
Right. I think so much of society is built around how attractive you are
Yeah.
and your
Yeah.
desirability. And so if you feel like the person you're closest to isn't even attracted or desiring you, it can be such a blow.
Or even in a moment desiring someone else over you, or
Hmm.
yeah.
And the attraction can fade. Like I think people get so worried and caught up in, oh, I'm getting older. Does
Yeah.
my partner still love me? I gained some weight. Do they think I'm pretty? Or women have a different expectation than men, and men are expected to look like, bodybuilders. And I think over time, as life goes on and our bodies change, our libidos change, that can feel scary for people sexually too.
Yeah, it's something I wrote about in my book is like, it's not just on your partner to be attracted to you. Like, you have to do the work to be attracted to them. Like, you have to,
Mm,
like, create scenarios that are when you're most drawn to them, that you like put in effort to maintain that attraction rather than it just being like, well, they're not dressing sexy for me anymore. And so that it's gone. It's like, it's a two-way street. Like, you have to nurture your attraction as well.
I agree. And if you're not going on date nights or you're not um, getting in sexy scenarios once or twice a month, sometimes life catches up with you and you don't have sex or you don't really nurture your desires together.
I'd love to ask our final question that we always pose to our guests, which is, what is one fictional couple that you think should have gotten divorced?
So I think Eve Pilastri and Nico from Killing Eve. So have you watched the show at all?
I watched the first season. Yes.
Okay,
Remind
so
me.
you'll get the context.
Okay.
It's a great show. A lot happens in their relationship by the end. But in the first like 3 seasons, I was screaming at the TV being like, "Why are you together? You should not be together. Like, your wife is gay
Yeah.
and she's like about to cheat on you. Like, you're off the wall. Like, you're doing this other thing. You're not listening to each other at all. You fight all the time and you throw things at each other's heads.
Oh,
You should be
no.
divorced."
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's a
Yes.
strong case. That's hard to fight against.
And she is like a spy.
Right.
So
Yeah.
why is he getting into fights with a spy? She's gonna kick your ass.
Yeah.
You always say that being a spy doesn't mean that you have like you're a martial artist.
Well, yes, but that's because I was actually a spy, and she's a fake spy who can be a martial artist. In the world of the show, it's nothing like it is in real life.
Fair enough.
And she falls in love with an assassin, a female assassin that she's hunting
Right,
down.
right.
Um,
And the assassin, I mean, I get why she fell in love with the assassin personally.
Right.
But
yeah,
uh,
she's very beautiful.
yeah. And so maybe he was giving her some credit there if he knew what she looked like. But also, yeah, they're able to do a lot of fancy moves on the show
Oh, okay.
that I was never able to do.
Never say never.
That's true.
We'll get you into
I'll take karate
jujitsu.
classes.
Yeah.
So that people think that I was able to do it all along.
Well, Ellie, thank you so much for joining us. Where can people follow you and find your work?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. You can find me on TikTok at Hayley Folk, Instagram at Hayley Folk. I also have an Instagram at Naked Folk, which is where I do all of my ethical non-monogamy and polyamory education. And through my website, you can also contact me there. I offer writing, sex and relationships writing. I have an upcoming memoir that will be posted there soon. And then I also do one-on-one polyamory coaching as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was a great time.
So what'd you think?
I think I embarrassed myself.
You do?
Hayley comes in here all cool, talking about her cool lifestyle.
Right.
And they're like, hey, John, what would you find interesting about non-monogamy? And I'm like, I'd like to go to the orchestra. Like a dork.
Yes, I will be bringing this up for years.
Well, why won't you go to the orchestra with
This is a
me?
defining moment in our relationship.
This is so funny. And then also, the air conditioning wasn't on. So between my embarrassment and the heat that we were dealing with, my face must have been 3 shades red.
I don't think so.
Really? Well, we'll have to see on the YouTube.
Yeah, we'll have to double check. I'm trying to think if I would go to the orchestra with you.
You don't want to.
I really
and you'll
don't want to.
complain about it the whole time.
You know what I would do is that middle ground when like it's outside and you picnic.
No, I want to go to the orchestra.
But do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, you mean like we go to a concert?
Yeah, or
See,
like what's that fancy thing in like New England where you like go and it's like a whole thing and it's outside and you have a picnic?
Okay, so part of my orchestra desire
Is to be very fancy
is
dressed
to
up.
get dressed up for the
Got
orchestra.
it. Okay.
And it's the whole like there's
Well,
something
can't we go
really
to the theater? Doesn't the theater count?
yes, but also you like to go to like musicals that were once movies.
Wow. I also go to musicals that then became movies.
And I maybe would be interested in
I like plays. I don't know why you're acting like I don't like a play.
you told me you didn't like a play.
That's not true.
So next time we're in New York, we can go to Broadway and we can just go to a straight play.
Yes, I've been to plays on Broadway and had a thoroughly wonderful time.
Okay, but here's the thing too. The orchestra or the opera, you get dressed up for that. No one gets dressed up for the Broadway show.
We can. All right, fine.
I gotta find my non-monogamous orchestra lady. Look, if you're out there, lady, no kissing, no sex.
This is just a friend. Just go with one of your friends.
Yeah, but I want to go with like a pretty friend, and none of them want to go on to the orchestra with me.
Michelle wouldn't go to the orchestra with you?
Maybe she would. I think she'd make fun of me the whole time.
Yeah, she would.
I need to go with one of my. It can't be a friend. They're gonna make fun of me the whole time.
I bet Rachel would go with you.
Rachel would go with me to the orchestra.
I think so, and she's beautiful.
All right, fine. Well, Rachel, if you're out there,
Rachel, if you're listening.
if you're listening to this podcast, tell Sean to go to the other room. Will you go to the orchestra with me? I will have you home in time to take care of your family and just go to the orchestra with me.
Yeah, I'm sure she would.
Wow. Our non-monogamous lifestyle begins right now. How exciting for us.
All right, it's time for our final segment of the show.
All right.
Which is just a viral sensation of a game show.
Yeah, everyone is talking about it on the internet.
Yeah, everyone. And if for some reason you haven't seen anyone talk about it on the internet, you should start.
Yeah.
That would be really helpful. This game is called Stay or Leave. I give you a scenario of how I might behave in the future, and you decide if you would stay or leave me, because marriage is a choice, not a trap.
Interesting concept. I'm eager to play.
This really makes a lot of sense based on what I already said in the interview. I'm like doubly telling on myself here. Okay. I decide that I would like to try an open relationship, but I want to do a very specific kind of non-monogamy where we are only allowed to make out with strangers in public places.
Okay.
I also insist on a quota where we each have to have at least 2 makeouts per month. And if we aren't able to meet that quota, we have to pay a fine. Would you stay or leave?
So if I don't find 2 ladies to make out with me in public every month,
Yeah,
I have to pay you a fine?
right. $500.
What?
Do you think you could even do it?
Are you meeting the quota?
I'm trying. Sometimes I fail and I have to pay $500.
No, that sounds so stressful. The fine part and that it has to be in public.
Yeah.
So not only have you to meet someone, you have to say, listen, they're like, are you open? Like, not really. I just have to make out with you in public or I owe $500. So you could make out with me or you could give me $500. Both are equal actions on your part. And that would be humiliating if they handed me $500.
Why would anyone pay? They just walk away.
A rich person who finds me disgusting but pathetic and needs to help me. Like, this guy needs the help.
All right. Yeah. What if there wasn't the fine? Is that the part that you don't like?
The public thing is weird too.
Yeah.
So you have to make out with them in public. And the quota is bad too.
So none of this is appealing to you.
All of it sounds terrible. So let's not do that.
But I insist, or you have to divorce me.
Because you want this.
Yeah, I say it's important for me.
Yeah, I have to leave you. I'm sorry.
Imagine explaining that to people.
So yeah, I'm still in love with Allison, but she's forced us into a quota system where we have to make out with someone in public or receive $500.
Or be fined $500.
Right, fine $500.
Receive $500, easy peasy.
If I paid you $1,000 a month, would you not make out with these other guys in public?
Where are you going to get the money?
GoFundMe?
We did it. We completed yet another episode 8 of our show. Wow. Folks thought we couldn't do it.
They said so.
Yeah, they said by episode 6, these kids will have burnt out and exploded.
Someone commented on our very first episode that this is the best way to end a marriage.
Yeah, they did.
Well, look who's laughing now.
8 weeks later.
Absolutely. 8 weeks later, we're still together.
If you were thinking this was so much fun to listen to, but I want to watch what happened.
Right.
I want to see how red John's face got.
Uh-huh.
You can check out the video version of this podcast at youtube.com/justbetweenus.
And if you want to submit your marriage moment, email us at startermarriagepodcast@gmail.com. That's startermarriagepodcast@gmail.com.
It's so fun to do, right?
It's a lot of fun, yeah.
Yeah. Now we're going to fight over who gets to say it each episode. We're also always looking for topic suggestions and helpful feedback.
Questions.
Kind feedback about the show, which you can also give us through ratings and reviews on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts. Ratings and reviews really help get the word out about the show. And it also helps us book even higher level guests because then they go, what is this show? Should I waste my time talking to these people? And if there's more ratings and reviews, they might be likely to say yes.
And if you have been listening to Allison today, watching her on YouTube, and you're thinking, what's going on in her head? How could I possibly flirt with her at a party? Why don't you check out I Think, Conversations About Modern Marriage. It's a great book that Allison wrote about marriage that was the foundation of this show. Or you can check out Save the Date, which is a fictional rom-com that Allison wrote that very much features our love story. And so you know what you're up against.
And if you're like, I don't like to read, but that's a nice gift, buy it for someone else.
Yeah. Friend, a lover.
A neighbor.
Mm-hmm.
You know what else you could do? You could say, I don't even want to read this, but I want to support Allison, so request it at your local library.
That sounds great.
Well, as we say in our home,
Arv
woof.
Woof.
You really didn't want to sync it up with me, did you?
I thought I'd throw you a little curveball.
We're already crumbling.